My name is Raquel Horsford Best.
My name is Ahmed Best. Best?
We're married,
Yes.
and this is our
And this is
story
our story and how it relates
to
to
you.
you.
We have an 11-year-old son,
Yes.
beautiful brown-skinned boy,
Yes.
and he's of school age.
He is.
And he has already experienced um, racism,
Yeah, racism and discrimination. I mean,
discrimination.
there's this pervasive idea that certain children are too young to be told about this thing. And what's frustrating is if you are of color, you are never too young to experience it. And the thing that is always difficult is, children, they learn from their parents. So if the parents are discriminating against black people, people of color, all the other than the idea of what is traditional Western cisgendered, you know, ideas of existence, the children pick up on that as young as they're able to comprehend that they have parents.
Yes.
And then they bring that to the school. They bring it to the playground. They bring it to the classroom. And regardless of whether or not they totally understand how much pain they could inflict on someone that doesn't look like them, they still do it, and it still hurts.
Yes.
And our son felt it at a very young age, and we recognized it because we felt it at a very young age. So it exists, it happens, and it's very difficult to explain to the parents how early this starts,
Yes.
how easy it is for their children to pick up on it and exact that type of behavior onto your child of color, and how you're supposed to talk about it, and how you're supposed to stop it. And what we have to do is we have to be vehemently and fiercely and ferociously anti-racist wherever we are, in every space that we're in. And that also includes the child space. It also includes the learning and education environment, because if any place to do it, that's the place to do it.
Yes.
They're there to learn anyway.
To pick up on what you were saying, children experience racism at very young age, but people that are not of color have a very hard time articulating what racism is to their children because they do not experience it, and they feel that is too traumatic for their children to understand, or it's too violent for their innocent hearts and their minds. But I say, if you're as young as a 5-year-old to experience it, you're old enough to have it explained to you. Like Ahmed was saying, school especially, this is the place where children are supposed to feel safe. A lot of incidents has happened in these safe spaces where for some reason supervisors, principals, teachers have not seen anything. It's kind of like a hearsay. So then when you bring these issues up to their parents, it's very offensive to call their children racist, or to accuse them of being biased in some way or some fashion. And there's a lot of gaslighting that happens when you do approach them, even in the kindest way. Well, my daughter didn't mean, maybe she didn't really mean, her skin was like the color of mud, or maybe they didn't mean to say it was dirty. Maybe they just thought because the color of this and that. I mean, it's the excuses go on and on and on. If they're witnessing their children kind of explaining away behavior, then they're not going to know the severity of the issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you're faced with this, the best thing to do is just to call it out, talk about it.
Yeah.
and really get in the weeds about it, really go in on it. And, what we're skirting around as when we're talking about the ones who have enacted this type of behavior onto our children, we're really, their parents are trying to avoid their children from feeling a myriad of things. Guilt is a big issue. Hurt, pain. They don't want their children to feel like they're wrong. They don't want them to feel like put upon. But they don't realize that that's what their children are doing to our children. And we have to try to find ways to navigate through our children's pain and explain to them how the world really is a place of love and of care. But when you feel this at such a very young age, it's so easy to feel the despair of it. That's why we all have to be on the same page with this. That's why we all have to be committed to eradicating racism, eradicating this type of discrimination, this type of behavior globally.
The onus is on everyone. And, I've been asked by white parents, like, how do I don't know how to. It's like, I don't have to give you a book to explain how to talk to your children about racism. There's so many things that I don't know, and I Google it. I go to the library, I buy books, I read about it. There's so much literature, education out there for you to research, to educate yourselves on how to talk to your child at an age-appropriate fashion. And to me, that's just putting the onus on someone else. It's not my problem. I don't experience it. And again, like you said, I don't want to have the burden of the guilt, the white guilt, as they say, because this year, we're transparent. 2020 has been a very difficult year.
It's been challenging.
Ahmaud Arbery was brutally murdered, and I cried as if he was my own child. I literally sobbed in Ahmaud's arms, and I cried. I cried because that could be our son, your son, because of the color of their skin, gaslighting it because he looks suspicious or he was looking at a home. Do you know how many white people from out of town walk by our home and look in this fence and look through the gate and admire it? So many people do the same thing, but for some reason, when it's in a different package, when it's in a dark skin, it is suspicious, it's criminal.
I remember Marley came, our son came home and asked me one time, he said, "Dad, do police just want to kill me?" And I said, "No, they don't. They're there to protect you." And he says, "Well, what do I do when a police officer stops me and he wants to kill me?" This was years ago. He was maybe about 4 or 5 years old. And I said, "Baby, your job is to come home alive. That's your job."
That's what people of color are telling their children.
And he said, "Okay, Dad." He was like, "So if they tell me like to put my hands behind my back and get on the ground and all this stuff," I said, "Yeah, you do it, because your job is to come home alive.
And we'll deal with the rest."
And then it's our job next. We take care of what's going to happen next. And as parents, we all want to just see our children grow up and live the lives that they dream of living. We want them to be able to thrive and not just survive. And that's why we have to stop this cycle of hate, this cycle of racism, this cycle of bigotry and prejudice and discrimination. Because, and I'll end this way, James Baldwin had this really great quote. He says, "If I'm in danger, you're in despair. And if our children are in danger, the world will be in despair." So let's eradicate the danger.
And look at all children as if they're your own.